Happiness can refer to money. A person who is financially saturated is called wealthy. And there is happiness that relates more to inner feeling, not material but fulfillment, satisfaction, being a truly happy human being. In this lesson, with God's help, we will look from a Jewish perspective at how a person can reach a combination of both. There are people who have wealth but do not have happiness, and the opposite exists too. And someone who merits having both certainly lives on a much higher and better level. Let us look at the words of King Solomon in the book of Proverbs, chapter 10, verse 3. There is one who becomes wealthy though he has nothing, and one who becomes poor though he has great wealth. This special wording, spoken by the wisest man in history, has many explanations. Rashi alone offers 3 interpretations on this verse, and others add several more, and it seems clear that King Solomon intended all of them because the wording itself naturally awakens all of these explanations. Let us begin with the first one. There is one who becomes wealthy though he has nothing, meaning there is a person who becomes rich even though in the beginning he had absolutely nothing. His starting point was no wealth at all, and yet you see him becoming successful and reaching great fortune, and one who becomes poor though he has great wealth. There is someone else who loses the great wealth he once had and falls to the lowest level until nothing remains. What is King Solomon teaching here? He says, look at the world, look at life. You will see poor people who became wealthy and wealthy people who became poor. He is telling each person, even if your current financial situation is not what you wish it was, even if someone feels he is living in poverty and lacking, wanting basic things for himself and his family, but not having them, and he is already reaching a state of despair, King Solomon tells him, know this, there are people who became wealthy. There are paths and possibilities available to you. There are people who had absolutely nothing, and today they are wealthy, secure, able to spend freely and give generously. So the first message is encouragement, never give up. As the verse says, is anything too difficult for God? God can turn everything around for the good and for blessing in a moment. Sometimes a person who is already struggling gets hit with another blow from heaven, and he does not understand. I'm already suffering. Why another blow? But the real purpose of that blow may be to elevate him, to lift him much higher, like the story we once mentioned from after the Holocaust. Many refugees reached the shores of America with nothing, and even the Jewish communities in America at that time were not yet well established. A 12-year-old boy arrived. During all the years of the war, he wandered through forests with partisans. While children his age around the world were learning to read and write, he learned nothing. He was in the forests. He arrived in America not knowing even the alphabet, with no parents, no family. But he was sharp and intelligent. He began selling newspapers, sleeping on benches in the streets. The Gabbai of the synagogue heard that this boy was Jewish. He called him over and said, soon it will be winter. In New York, you cannot survive sleeping on benches in the cold. The boy asked, so what can I do? The Gabbai said, come work in the synagogue. Arrange the books, wash, clean. We will give you a basic salary to live on, and you'll have a place to sleep. They told him, we have a small room here. You can sleep there. He was overjoyed. It was good for him and good for them. He grew up there. His salary was raised. When he reached the age of marriage, they raised it again. A basic salary he could live on. And he knew, I have nowhere else to go. I don't know how to read or write. I never learned anything. No one will hire me. He worked there for 25 years, and he had an excellent memory. People would come on Shabbat donating for the synagogue. How does the synagogue survive? From people's donations, from honors during the Torah reading. During the week, when someone would come to donate a full amount, the gabbai was not there. He worked elsewhere for his own livelihood. So this boy, later a young man, was there. He didn't know how to write, but he remembered. This one donated $50, that one $72. He remembered names. The gabbai would arrive, take out the receipts, and the young man would hand him the money. Everything ran smoothly. After 25 years, the gabbaim called him in and said, "We have wanted to talk to you about this for a long time, but we delayed it out of respect for you. But there is no choice. Either you learn to read and write and start managing things here properly. Because the synagogue has expanded, there are many worshippers, and we can't continue like this, or we will have to give you compensation for 25 years of work and bring someone else." He was deeply offended. He said, "I've been here all these years, married, with several children. Who will hire me? How can you do this to me?" They said, "That is why we delayed this for so long. But this is the conclusion. This is the final decision. You must choose," he told them. "At my age, I can't learn to read and write. If you want to fire me, fire me. But know that this is not right." They gave him an envelope with his compensation for 25 years of work, apologized and dismissed him. He left angry. At God, no less than at the gabbaim. Every rabbi he met, he asked, "Tell me, how could God let this happen to me? I served him faithfully for 25 years. What do I do in the synagogue? I clean, I wash, I even dust, though I'm not required to, all with love, with heart, and this is what I deserve, to be left without a livelihood? How did he allow them to do this?" And every rabbi answered him, "You know what the Talmud says, everything the merciful one does is for the good." He said, "Easy for you to say, but in reality, with what I'm going through." But he had to move on. He thought of a creative idea, to start a business no one else had tried. He had a brilliant mind. He opened a business, saw that it worked well, expanded to several branches, and it became a chain throughout New York. He became wealthy, very wealthy. Seeing the amount of money he was making, he began investing in real estate. This was the time when real estate in America was rising year after year. He bought houses, sold them, bought buildings, until he reached the level of a billionaire. One day, he was sitting in one of the tall towers in Manhattan, in his office, about to sign a deal to purchase another building for $100 million. He was dressed in full elegance. The seller arrived with his lawyers, and he arrived with his lawyers. They handed him the contract to sign. The seller took out a large, expensive gold pen, scribbled his signature, and handed him the document to sign. He reached into his pocket and also took out something made of gold, but not a pen. He pulled out an ink pad. How did he sign all his deals? With a fingerprint stamp. He did not know how to read or write. He didn't even know how to write his own name. With his thumb, calmly, the way he was used to, he dipped it in the ink and signed. The seller was not very discreet. He couldn't hold himself back and said to him, "Tell me, a billionaire like you, and you don't know how to read and write?" He raised his eyes from the contract, looked at him and said, "If I knew how to read and write, I would still be washing floors today. It is because I don't know how to read and write that I reached where I am now." And suddenly the realization hit him, how much he had complained against God, and now he understood that God had pushed him out because he wanted him to rise. "You are stuck there, serving me for 25 years. I want you to move forward." So he gave him that push. At the time, It looked like a disaster. The greatness of a person who has faith is not that he understands everything only after the salvation comes and then says, "Now I get it." The greatness is when he still does not see the light at the end of the tunnel. He does not understand why God is doing this to him. But he still trusts the Holy One, blessed be He, that everything the Merciful One does is for the good. And how many stories like this exist in all areas of life? Sometimes in marriage, when someone was already planning to marry a certain person, or when someone wanted to buy a home and things fell through. In many situations, a person must say to himself, "I know I did my part. The rest from heaven is for my good." But King Solomon begins by telling a person, "Know this. There is one who becomes wealthy though he has nothing. There are people who had absolutely nothing in the beginning and they became very wealthy. So do not despair. The question is, what can I do?" A person may say, "I want to advance, I'm trying, I'm making efforts." In any area where a person wants to progress, not only in wealth, there are two tracks that must be activated. The first is the natural track. The second is the spiritual track. Just as we are made of body and soul, every advancement in life must combine body and soul. The body is the material side. The natural effort a person makes, learning something, taking exams, opening a business, acting in a rational, practical way, seeking advice to do it properly. But there is always the spiritual effort, which influences that very same matter. Every area has its spiritual key. One must look for what is written about that subject. For example, health issues in the digestive system. The recommendation is to bless over everything one eats. When a person makes a blessing over food, he changes his inner reality. Skin diseases, to think about modesty and holiness. Fertility, children, family purity, mikveh, the laws of nida. Every area has its spiritual source. What is written regarding wealth? There are several things in the Torah that relate to becoming wealthy. The first is honoring one's wife. The Talmud says, Rabbi Rabbah said to the people of Mechoza, Rabbah, one of the greatest sages of his generation, who was also deeply versed in the mystical teachings. The Talmud says he was expert in the secrets of the letters of Sefer Yetzirah. He was able to create things as in the act of creation. He possessed tremendous spiritual power. Anyone who studies Talmud sees Rabbah and Abaye constantly, but the Gemara usually speaks on the surface level, not in the language of Kabbalah. Still, from time to time, hints appear that show what kind of person he truly was. So the Talmud says, on the simple level, Rabbah told the people of his city, "Honor your wives and you will become wealthy." He doesn't explain why. He simply says, honor your wife, buy her things that bring her joy, be careful not to hurt her with words, do not cause her to shed tears. Even if you are right, hold back, let go, go toward her, give her joy, make her smile, surprise her, celebrate birthdays, make happy moments, let her be happy. First of all, this is also an obligation of the husband toward his wife, which he signs in the ketubah, to provide food, support, and sustenance. A woman does not sign at the wedding that she will supply her husband's needs. The husband signs a contract, the ketubah, in which he obligates himself to give and to provide. According to the inner teachings of Torah, the male represents the mashpia, the giver, the one who bestows. He is the one who is obligated to give more. Of course, a wife also gives naturally to her husband, but the specific obligation to feed, to support, to sustain, to provide for her needs is placed on the husband. When a man gives to his wife and makes her happy, he becomes deserving of blessing in his money. What is the connection? The Talmud does not explain, because the Talmud speaks on the simple level, but when you open the Zohar, you understand the deeper reality behind Rabbah's statement, honor your wives, and you will become wealthy. The Talmud itself does not enter the mystical level, but the inner wisdom of Kabbalah explains. One of the great foundations is that there are 10 upper sephirot, spiritual channels through which divine abundance flows into the world. And the human body is built according to the structure of these 10 sephirot. In a lesson around Lag BaOmer, when we discussed some foundations of Kabbalah, we mentioned this in detail. Also in the final chapter of the book, The Code of the Letters, there is a full section explaining the structure of the sephirot, how they correspond to the human body and to creation. There is a sphera called Malchut, the root of livelihood. Parnassa, income, is found in Malchut. The spiritual root of the feminine is also in Malchut. The spiritual root of Shabbat also in Malchut. This sephira is the 7th of the lower 7 sephirot. The 3 upper sephirot, corresponding to the head, Chokhmah, Bina, Da'at, the 2 hemispheres of the brain and the brainstem. Then in the body itself, Hesed and Gevurah, right and left arms, Tiferet, the torso, the legs, Netzach and Hod, the covenant, Yesod, and the crown at its end, Malchut, called Ateret HaYesod. This is the structure of the human body, formed according to the Sephirot. The 7th of the 7 lower Sephirot is the sphere of Malchut. The spiritual root of the feminine is found in Malchut. Therefore, fertility is connected to Malchut. Livelihood is also connected to Malchut. This means that in Judaism, we have 2 forms of kingship. The first queen is the woman. The second is Shabbat, which is called Shabbat the queen. Why is Shabbat called the queen? Because of its spiritual root. It is rooted in Malchut. When a man honors his wife, he must understand he is not honoring the physical body standing before him. The body is only a garment. The real person is the spiritual part within her. And her soul's root is in Sephira of Malchut. When you honor her, you are honoring the spiritual Malchut above, which is her source. As a result, blessing flows down to you, including financial blessing, because that is where the root lies. The same is true with Shabbat. We all sing on Friday night in the synagogue, "Let us go to greet the Shabbat, for she is the source of blessing." What does it mean that Shabbat is the source of blessing? After all, on Shabbat, we do no work. There is no income. In the wilderness, the manna did not fall on Shabbat. So what is the blessing found in Shabbat? The Zohar asks this question. What blessing is found in it? The Torah says, "And God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it." Sanctified, we understand, He elevated it, separated it from all other days. Just as we say in a marriage ceremony, "Behold, you are sanctified to me," meaning you are set apart from all others. So too God separated Shabbat from the other days. But what does it mean? "And God blessed the 7th day." The Zohar explains, God embedded within Shabbat a spiritual power of blessing for all the days of the week. The Zohar describes it like this. We are used to looking at the week as a straight line, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, ending with Shabbat. But from a higher spiritual perspective, the structure of the week is different. Shabbat is in the center, and the 6 weekdays surround it, like the shape of a Magen David, a central space with 6 surrounding points. Every weekday when you work for your livelihood, let's say Sunday, you draw blessing like water from a well. There are 6 wells around you, but where is the overflowing spring that fills all those wells? The Zohar says that spring is Shabbat. That is why Shabbat is called the source of blessing. True, on Shabbat you do not draw directly from the spring because you do not work. You do no labor, but when you keep Shabbat properly, the blessing of Shabbat rises and fills everything with abundant goodness. That is the meaning of "let us go to greet the Shabbat, for she is the source of blessing." This phrase, written by Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz, is taken from the teachings of the Zohar. So now we already have 2 pieces of advice for someone who wants financial blessing. Number 1, honor your wife. If there are difficulties in livelihood, one must ask, how do I treat my wife? Is she happy with me? Am I hurting her? Do I make her smile? Or the opposite? This, in fact, is also the reason behind a common mistake many single men and women make today. They may already be in a relationship for 2, 3, even 5 years. He wants to marry her, and she wants to marry him. There is no doubt between them, the decision is made. So people ask them, why aren't you getting married already? You're 25, 28. What's the delay? And the answer is always the same. First, we want to be financially stable, and then we'll get married. But this is a serious mistake. If a person truly wants to become financially secure, he should get married. Invest in your wife, make her happy, and you will see blessing in your income. You will succeed. When you meet people who delayed marriage until they become financially stable, speak to them 8 years later and ask, so, did you reach stability? And they will answer, where? I only have more debt. Nothing improved. Get married. Live a life of holiness. Move forward together. She will bring her income. You will bring yours. And together you will progress. Buy an apartment, even with a mortgage if necessary, but build a life, letting the years slip by, and meanwhile stumbling into forbidden behavior. That is not the right path. We also spoke about how important it is to encourage single men to save money. Many of them, right before the wedding, say, if only I had saved the money I earned from the day I finished the army until today, instead of wasting it on nonsense, I could have already bought an apartment. I would have had a down payment. But instead, he is now getting married and moving from rental to rental, struggling with rent. Our sages said, who is wise? One who sees what is coming. Why waste money on things that do not matter? Yes, buy what you truly need. But the unnecessary outings, the unnecessary purchases, save that money. Every coin added to another becomes a large sum. Aim to have a home of your own. Even with a mortgage, instead of paying rent to someone else, you are paying towards something that will eventually belong to you. Yes, the bank takes interest, but at least you are building an asset. To live only in rentals and say, it will be fine, it will be fine, that is not a responsible approach. A person must think about his future and build a stable, healthy life. Some people receive everything from their parents, but most do not. So we must be wise and guide young people. Save, plan ahead, build a secure future. Let us return to our main topic. We mentioned 2 pieces of advice for someone who wants financial blessing. Honoring one's wife. Honoring Shabbat. Honoring Shabbat does not only mean observing the laws, but also showing respect for the day. A person who wants blessing in his livelihood needs both, the halachic observance of Shabbat and the honor due to Shabbat. Even if one does not yet keep everything, he should begin, gradually. If the phone is difficult, say, all right, I won't drive, I won't turn on lights. Only the phone remains. Later, continue forward. By Friday night, I can manage without the phone. I already read all the news before Shabbat. Nothing dramatic will happen until midnight. And if, God forbid, something major happens, like an explosion, I'll hear it even without checking updates. So wait until the morning, then a few more hours. Slowly, you will adjust. And your surroundings will adjust as well. People will know. In his home, Shabbat is truly Shabbat. The phone is off. When a person progresses step by step, the blessing of Shabbat enters his life. The second aspect of honoring Shabbat is not only observing the laws, but elevating the day itself. What does honoring Shabbat mean? The sages mention 2 expressions of honor. Your clothing on Shabbat should not be the same as your weekday clothing. Wear special clothes in honor of Shabbat, even if you are abroad, surrounded by non-Jews. Shabbat is not about the surrounding environment. It is about honoring the day itself. Your Shabbat meal should not resemble weekday meals. During the week, you may eat a simple omelette and salad. On Shabbat, prepare the foods you love, foods that bring joy to the table. A variety of salads, meat, fish, delicacies, and whatever he enjoys, he should prepare in abundance. This is part of honoring the Shabbat. The Friday night meal, the Shabbat morning meal, the more dignified and festive they are, the better. The third meal may be simpler, but there should still be 3 meals on Shabbat, each with 2 loaves of bread. At night and in the morning there is Kiddush. Everyone knows the laws. After Shabbat ends, we make Havdalah. When Shabbat is kept properly, one truly merits the great blessing that comes from Shabbat. Another point mentioned in connection with wealth and financial success is washing the hands before a meal, as well as reciting the blessing after eating bread. Before eating bread, one washes the hands. He takes a vessel or a cup, it does not matter which, and pours water 3 times on each hand. Not like the morning washing upon waking. The morning washing is done alternately, first the right hand, then the left, and again until each hand has been washed 3 times, and then one recites the blessing, Al Netilat Yadayim. But before a meal, the washing is done consecutively, 1, 2, 3 on the first hand, then the same on the other hand. The water should cover the entire hand. The Talmud quotes Rava, who said, I fill my hands with water when washing for the meal, and the Holy One, blessed be He, fills my hands with blessing, with abundant livelihood. And then there is Birkat Hamazon, the blessing after eating bread. A person who recognizes God's kindness should bless before eating and after eating bread. Recite Birkat Hamazon. Someone once told me that he began strengthening himself and decided to recite Birkat Hamazon. But after doing it once or twice, he stopped. I asked him, why did you stop? He said, it's too long. It takes me too much time. Someone who is used to it recites it quickly, knows the words by heart. For someone who is not used to it, it feels difficult. I told him, say Birkat Hamazon at least until the section of Hara Haman, that is about half. The main part of the blessing is the first section. The Hara Haman paragraphs that follow are requests and supplications. May God grant me this. May He grant me that. So, just because you feel overwhelmed by all the Hara Haman requests, should you lose the essential part of the blessing? Start with half, then progress. Eventually you will reach the full Birkat Hamazon, including all the Hara Haman requests, and it is a shame to miss so many meaningful blessings and prayers. King Solomon continues and says, after he already stated, there is one who becomes wealthy, though he has nothing. According to the first explanation, this refers to a person who had nothing, yet becomes wealthy. So do not despair. You can rise to greatness. Even one whose destiny is rooted in poverty, say our sages, can change it through good deeds and charity. Charity, especially Maser, giving 10% of one's net earnings, is one of the strongest tools for this. Give a tenth so that you may become wealthy. He then continues, there is one who becomes poor, though he once had great wealth. What is the message? Solomon is teaching. When a person is financially secure and has great wealth, he must use that time to acquire spiritual possessions for the world to come. No one is guaranteed to remain wealthy forever. Many people once had great wealth and lost it. The word mitroshesh means becoming diminished. His assets gradually decrease, even though he once had much. So Solomon is saying, when you have wealth, use it now. Do not say, when I grow old, I will start giving charity. Who said you will remain wealthy in old age? If you have the ability now, give now. There is a story of a Jewish minister of finance who was accused by jealous officials of stealing from the royal treasury. He was honest and loyal, but after hearing so many accusations, even the king began to suspect him. One day, after the ministers once again accused him of theft, the king confronted him and said, "I want you to give me a full report of all your private assets. Write down everything you own." The minister said, "I don't need to write it down. It's all recorded already." He took out a small notebook, flipped to a page, and said, "It's all written here. My total personal wealth, $59,870. The king became furious. He thought, he is mocking me. His house alone is worth more than that. So he immediately ordered that the minister be thrown into prison and signed a decree transferring all his belongings to the royal treasury. After lunch, the king calmed down and thought to himself, "I know this man. He is wise and intelligent. Even someone trying to lie would not tell a lie so foolish and transparent. There must be something behind this." He ordered the minister brought back. The minister entered, still calm. The king said, "Tell me the truth. Why did you insult me with such an obvious lie?" The minister replied, "It was no lie, and I knew you would call me back so that I could explain." He opened the notebook and said, "Your Majesty, you asked me, what is your private wealth? When I am asked that question, this is the answer. This is a charity ledger. Whenever I give charity, I record the amount here, and from time to time I total it. This is my true private wealth. Everything else is not really mine. I am only using it temporarily. If it can be taken from me with one royal signature, then it is not truly mine. But what is written here, even you, your Majesty, cannot take from me. This accompanies me to the world to come. This is eternal." The king was deeply moved by this way of thinking. He immediately released him, cancelled the confiscation, and said, "As I always knew, you are a man of true integrity and spiritual greatness, far above all the accusations made against you. And this is truly the right way to think. When a person has the ability to give, he should not wait for some uncertain future. If he can help now, he should give now. That mitzvah will remain his forever, eternally." So far we explained the first of the three interpretations of Rashi on this verse of King Solomon. The second interpretation deals not with wealth, but with happiness. Until now we spoke about Osher with an ayin, material wealth. Now we move to Osher with an aleph, inner happiness, satisfaction in life. King Solomon says, "Some become wealthy, yet feel they have nothing. There is a person who is growing wealthier and already has plenty, but when you speak with him, he says, 'I feel like I have nothing.' We hear this even today. People use the expression, 'I have everything, but I have nothing.' I've heard this many times from financially successful people. They say, 'You won't believe it, I have everything, and yet inside I feel empty. I don't feel good.' On the other hand, Solomon says, 'There is one who becomes poor, yet feels rich. There is a person who is losing his wealth, but inside he feels full, satisfied, content with life.' So how does a person reach a state where he is not only wealthy in the material sense, but also truly happy? It is well known that in Hebrew there is a difference between Osher with ayin and Osher with aleph. Each Hebrew letter represents a different spiritual force. In the book Hatzofen, we dedicated an entire chapter to each letter and explained how the letters of a person's name influence his spiritual nature. The first letter of the name has the strongest influence, the second less, the third even less. When you study the secret of the letters and their spiritual power, you begin to understand why people struggle in certain areas of life. The letter Aleph represents Alufo Shel Olam, the master of the world. It is a highly spiritual letter. Its numerical value is 1. God alone is truly one. Everything else is relative. There can be one watch here, but there are many like it elsewhere. Only God is absolutely one, not made of parts, not duplicated anywhere else. Aleph therefore represents divine oneness. A person whose name begins with Aleph often finds no rest in materialism. He is constantly searching for spirituality, Torah study, mitzvot, good deeds. That is what fills him. Money and pleasures may be nice, but they do not give him inner fulfillment. This is true for all people, but especially for those whose names begin with Aleph. The letter Ayin, by contrast, has a deeper, heavier sound. In ancient Hebrew, and still today in many Sephardi and Eastern communities, Aleph, Ayin, and Hey are pronounced differently. In modern Hebrew, many people pronounce them the same, but originally they were distinct. And this affects meaning. Ayin is related to seeing, something physical, tangible. Aleph is more spiritual. So, Ayin has a deep, heavy sound, while Aleph is soft and light. Take Hebrew words that exist with both letters, and you will see. When you replace Ayin with Aleph, the meaning shifts from material to spiritual. Examples. Or with Ayin, skin, physical. Or with Aleph, light, spiritual. Homed with Ayin, standing physically. Homed with Aleph, estimating and evaluating in a spiritual mind. Afar with an Ayin means ashes, heavy and physical. Efer with an Aleph means ashes that are airy and light. The same applies to Osher. Osher with Ayin is material wealth. Osher with Aleph is inner fulfillment and spiritual joy. One belongs to the body, the other to the soul. So what should a person do to become truly happy? There are people who say, I am becoming wealthier, but I feel I have nothing. All this wealth means nothing to me. I don't feel satisfied. King Solomon speaks about it briefly here in Proverbs and expands on it further in Kohelet. There he explains why people do not reach satisfaction, why they are always chasing more, and what can be done to truly feel fulfilled. He writes, all of a person's labor, all of his effort in the material world, goes only to his mouth. Meaning, everything you work for physically is for the body, but the soul is not satisfied by that. The soul is spiritual. The nefesh is spiritual. You cannot take a car and say to the soul, here, enjoy the car. The car belongs to the body. Let the body enjoy it. The soul says, I want spirituality. Give me Torah learning. It fills me. Let me put on tefillin, do a mitzvah. It fills me. Let me help someone in need. That fills me. If you have an elderly aunt in a nursing home, dedicate 15 minutes a week to speak with her on the phone or visit her in person, so she will feel that someone still remembers her. You are giving her life, and after those 15 minutes, when you end the call or leave the visit, you will suddenly feel a sense of fullness, a sense of wealth. But what did you actually do? You listened to a 90-year-old woman telling stories that may not interest you at all, and yet you walk away feeling happy. Why? Because you fed the soul. When you perform a mitzvah, when you do an act of kindness, whether it is between a person and God or between a person and another person, when you open a book of Halacha, Jewish law, or study Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, or Gemara, or attend a Torah class, you are giving nourishment to the soul. And this is what King Solomon is teaching. Material wealth alone will not make you happy. If you rely only on wealth, you may become rich and still feel empty. There is one who becomes wealthy, yet feels he has nothing. But when you give the soul its true nourishment, spiritual nourishment, then you feel inner fulfillment. That is the meaning of, there is one who becomes poor, yet possesses great wealth. Outwardly, he may have very little, but inwardly he feels full, satisfied, content with life. His material situation is limited, but his soul is rich, and he feels good. The third explanation, there is one who becomes wealthy, yet has nothing. King Solomon is teaching, do not judge the vessel, judge what is inside it. There are people who present themselves as wealthy and successful, but it is all external appearance. Inside, it is not true. This is advice for someone about to enter a business partnership. A person may try to impress you with his watch, his appearance, but in reality, he may not possess the wealth he talks about. He throws around big numbers, wants you to sign deals, and later he may collapse the entire system. Therefore, Solomon says, if you are entering an agreement, you must discern whether the person is truly wealthy or only pretending. The same applies in matchmaking. You must look behind the scenes, not only at what someone projects outwardly. And on the other hand, there is one who appears poor, yet has great wealth. He looks like a pauper. You might think to hand him a coin of charity, but in truth he could cover your expenses with his fortune. When I was a young boy, in the year of my bar mitzvah, I studied in the Porat Yosef yeshiva. At that time, Rav Sasson David, known as Saliman David Sasson, came to visit. Later, I learned about his wealth and possessions. To this day, there is a famous Sasson collection of ancient manuscripts worth millions. And that is only one part of his worldwide assets. He was extremely wealthy, greatly successful in business, and gave enormous sums to charity and spiritual causes. He was the president of the Porat Yosef yeshiva, together with the Rav Ovadia Yosef. When he entered the yeshiva, everybody waited to see him. And when you saw him, you would think he was a poor man. He wore simple clothing, lived in the Beit Vagan neighborhood of Jerusalem, and rode a bicycle, no luxury cars or drivers. He donated huge amounts and invested heavily in Torah, but his personal lifestyle was extremely modest. That is exactly what King Solomon means. There is one who appears poor, yet has great wealth. That year, as the story is told, it was a harsh winter in Jerusalem. After the evening prayer, the rabbi of the synagogue announced with regret that this month they had missed the blessing over the moon. There is a specific time each month when, if the moon is visible, we bless it. During the days when it is still growing, it is considered a great mitzvah and a segula for joy throughout the month. But that night was the final deadline for the blessing, and the sky was covered with clouds. The rabbi said, if we cannot see the moon tonight, we have lost the blessing. Rav Sasson was present and asked in surprise, why should we lose it? He brought a minibus, took everyone to the Atarot airport. They boarded a helicopter, rose above the clouds, and from there they blessed the moon, then returned home. For him, missing the blessing over the moon was unthinkable. So what did he do? He took a helicopter. What's the problem? This is a man who, when you see him on the street, you think he needs your help, but he knows exactly where to invest his money. He has enormous wealth, but he says, I have no interest in showing myself as rich just to impress people. That is true greatness. In conclusion, we learn that every person has the ability, through spiritual effort together with natural effort, to reach both kinds of wealth, material wealth and inner wealth filled with satisfaction and joy. And we will end with a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Who is rich? One who is happy with his portion. A person who feels full, who says, what God has given me is enough, is truly wealthy. To be rich with an ayin is to be filled with money. But if a person owns $1 billion and envies someone who has 100 billion and feels he himself has nothing, he is not rich. He is a pauper who always needs more. But someone who reaches the end of the month peacefully is content with what he has and lives with joy. That person is also considered rich. We dedicate this lesson to the protection and success of everyone here and all who are watching, and to all the soldiers of Israel wherever they may be. May God watch over them all, granting them life, health, and peace. Amen.